Good evening. Thank you for joining us for our regular scheduled council meeting. It's Tuesday, September 9th at 7 p.m. Ms. Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Here.
George Glover. Linda Westhafer.
Here.
Charles Schwenke.
Here.
Terry Osborne.
Here.
Troy Hill.
Here.
Brandy Bailey. Jim Schrader.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Bailey notified me that she had a work conflict tonight, wouldn't be able to make it, so we will proceed. Councilman Glover will do our invocation, and I will lead the pledge. If you'll please stand.
Let's pray. Father God in heaven, we pray for wisdom, guidance in the sermon and doing the work of the people of Park City. We pray for favor for any Park City residents in need. We also pray for protection for our citizens as well as our first responders. Help us in doing what you've called each one of us to do, and that's serving others. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May be seated. Okay, we'll start out with approval of the agenda first. Charlie?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Terry?
Second.
Okay, motion by Charlie to approve the agenda as presented, seconded by Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Awards and presentations, we have nothing tonight. Public forum. I have nobody signed up for public forum tonight. So we'll move to staff reports. Do we have anything? Wow, we are just zinging through this. We're gonna be out here in a couple minutes. Okay, next we have the consent agenda. Do I have a motion? Okay, Troy.
I move to approve consent agenda as presented.
Terry?
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Troy to approve the consent agenda as presented, seconded by Terry. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we're on to new business, old business. Order affirming the Planning Commission denial of the final plat for North Park Industrial Second Edition. Doug?
Mayor and Council, at your last meeting, you heard an appeal by the applicant for a final plat of North Park Industrial Edition based upon the Park City Planning Commission's denial of that plat on a 5-1 vote. And after hearing from staff and from the applicant, the governing body voted 7-2 to affirm the Planning Commission's decision to deny that plat. I had asked that the motion include a direction for me to bring back an order supported by some findings of fact, and that's what you have before you. I would ask that you approve that. That will also finalize this matter in the event that the applicant wishes to proceed any further with it.
Thank you, Doug. Council, any discussion or questions? Charlie?
I move to adopt the order and support findings affirming denial of North Park Industrial Second Edition.
Okay. Whoops, everybody's backed out on me there. Charles?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any more discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1, and that motion was Charlie, seconded by Charles Schwenke. Next, we're on new business. Discuss and consider. Yes, discuss and consider proposed change of zoning district classification from the I-1 Light Industrial District to the I-2 Heavy Industrial District for property located south of 77th Street North and east of Broadway Avenue. Russ, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. Council members, Russ Avey, Zoning Administrator. We have two planning items on the agenda, and they're both associated with one another. Mr. Prather, the landowner, and Munns Property LLC, the contract buyer of some additional lots within the Prather addition, is seeking a zone change ultimately for the development of a bulk fuel storage business or use on one of two of the lots that they made application on. The zoning case is required to bring the property up in intensity to the I-2 zoning district where bulk fuel storage is first permitted as a special use. Planning Commission recommended 6-0 approval of the zone change with a protective overlay that basically then limits all uses back down to the I-1 light industrial zoning district. And I'll stand for any questions that you may have.
Charles?
Okay, excuse me, I'm confused on one thing.
Yes, sir.
We're going to change it to an I-2-1 zone, the whole area?
No, there are two lots out of the subdivision. Munn's property has already developed Kansas Trailer Sales and Service on the eastern edge of the subdivision. They're coming across and purchasing two additional lots within the same subdivision. Both will be zoned to the I-2 zoning district under this application. The protective overlay removes all other uses back down to the I-1 light industrial zoning district. So we don't want two pieces of property shown on your screen with heavy industrial uses. We just want the one bulk storage heavy industrial use.
Okay,
And that's the process by which we get there.
I understand that now.
Jim?
Honestly, don't have any questions on it. I appreciate the growth of the company and them moving forward, so I would move to approve ordinance 1217-2025, ordinance changing the zoning district classification of certain lands located in the city of Park City, Kansas, under the authority granted by its zoning regulations of the city as originally approved by ordinance number 1183-2023.
Thank you, Troy.
I'll second.
Thank you. Russ, I had a question. So
Yes, sir.
you mentioned the two properties that are highlighted there on the chart. So both of those are going from I-1 to I-2 or just? one of those?
Correct. And I don't mean to confuse the matter, and we'll get us some clarification perhaps on the next item.
That's what,
But we are zoning those up to I-2, but really restricting it back down through protective overlay to the I-1 uses. The special use has a condition attached to its recommendation that only permits one of those two lots to be the location for the bulk fuel storage.
so what's the purpose of doing the other one then?
At the time of application, Munn's property didn't know which site they would prefer to develop. So we gave them two options of one of which to pick from ultimately.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. And this will be a roll call vote.
Jim Schrader,
Aye.
Terry Osborne,
Aye.
Troy Hill,
Aye.
Linda Westhafer,
Aye.
George Glover,
Aye.
Charles Schwenke,
Aye.
Charlie Davidson.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Next, item 2, discuss and consider a proposed special use request to permit the bulk storage of fuel in I-2 Heavy Industrial District on property located south of 77th Street North and east of Broadway Avenue. Russ?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, the Planning Commission recommended 6-0 to approve the special use for bulk storage. And as previously mentioned, really the only caveat to this zoning case was staff and the Planning Commission wished for them to only develop one of the two lots for the bulk fuel storage. This special use was also conditioned upon, of course, being developed in conformance with KDHE as well as the Kansas Fire Marshal's standards for bulk fuel storage, as well as any other local, state, and federal regulations they would need to comply with. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Would entertain a motion to approve or deny. Charles?
I'll make the motion to approve the ordinance 1218-2025, an ordinance approving the special use to allow the bulk storage of fuel in the I-2 Heavy Industrial District on certain property located in the city of Park City, Kansas, under the authority granted by the zoning regulations of the city.
Thank you, Jim Schroeder.
I second that.
Okay. Charlie Davidson, did you have some discussion?
Nope, I was gonna second, thank you.
Okay. I noticed we changed the slide. Is there any discussion on this one?
I'm just assuming it's one or the other, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Very good. Okay. Motion by Charles Schwenke, second by Jim Schroeder. And this will be a roll call vote also.
Charles Schwenke,
Aye.
Charlie Davidson,
Aye.
Linda Westhafer,
Aye.
George Glover,
Aye.
Troy Hill,
Aye.
Jim Schrader,
Aye.
Terry Osborne.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0. Next, item 3, discuss and consider Hydraulic Avenue and 61st Street Road annexations.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff recently approached Sedgwick County about the annexation of a portion of Hydraulic Avenue at 77th Street North and a portion of 61st Street North on the eastern city limits. The city currently encompasses and maintains areas adjacent to the proposed annexations, and staff believes the annexation will create efficiencies with traffic control, road maintenance, and code enforcement. Sedgwick County is in agreement. Staff does recommend approval of the ordinance. I stand for any questions you may have.
Very good, thank you. Seems pretty cut and dry. Jim?
I guess the only downside is we'd have a little bit more road maintenance, but we're doing the road maintenance right up to that spot anyway, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, it would be, if we were to work on hydraulic, it would be awkward to leave out the triangle at that intersection. It just wouldn't make sense. On 61st, it's not a really long portion, and I think we would want our road to be maintained to that higher standard and have that ability.
We're probably doing snow removal on it now, but I guess I don't know.
Yeah, we are. We kind of trade off with the county on what stretches we're doing, and so on 61st, we do take that all the way to Hillside, even though we don't technically have all the way to Hillside.
Okay, I'll be quiet and see if anyone else has any questions.
Terry?
I don't have a question, so I will move to approve ordinance 1219, 2025, an ordinance including and incorporating certain land within the limits and boundaries of the city of Park City, Kansas.
Jim?
I second that.
Okay, this will also be a roll call vote.
Jim Schrader,
Aye.
Terry Osborne,
Aye.
Troy Hill,
Aye.
Linda Westhafer,
Aye.
George Glover,
Aye.
Charles Schwenke,
Aye.
Charlie Davidson.
Aye.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Next, consider ordinance amending section 14-202 of the municipal code relating to the speed limits on Hydraulic Street. Doug?
At a recent council meeting, a request was made at the public forum for the city to reconsider the speed limit along Hydraulic. And the police department conducted studies of the traffic speed along segments of Hydraulic and made recommendations that are set out in this amendment to the municipal code, which sets speed limits from 35 miles an hour to 55 miles an hour. And I'll let the chief explain those, or if anybody has questions about how those speeds were arrived at.
Go ahead, Chief.
Okay. What we're proposing is a change only of the 55 mile, what's currently 55 mile an hour speed limit from 85th Street south, going south on Hydraulic, down to where the speed limit changes to 45. So it's only the 55 mile an hour speed limit that we're proposing would be changed from 55 to 45. We looked at a number of factors. The Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is kind of the Bible of how to handle speed limits and so forth. That's been revised recently. Used to be the guidance was to follow the 85th percentile. That was kind of the main thing, which would be 85% of the traffic is traveling at that speed or slower. That's what the 85th percentile would be. They've amended that and said you need to look at a number of other factors as well, in addition to the 85th percentile. So without digging too deep into the data, it could kind of go either way. The 85th percentile is 57 miles per hour. So traffic in that stretch is traveling 57, 85% of them are traveling 57 or slower right now. There's also what's called the pace, and that's a 10-mile-an-hour band where the majority of the vehicles are traveling. So if that 10-mile-per-hour pace is less than 50 to 60%, so in this case, it's 48.9%, are traveling at the band of 47 to 56 miles an hour. So what that suggests in this case is that the speeds in this area are kind of widely dispersed. So you have a lot of people that are going different speeds. That is a problem in the sense that if you have a lot of driveways, people that are entering and exiting the road, the faster the traffic's going, the more variation of speed that you have, the more problem that can be. So if you just think of someone slowing down to turn into a driveway or turning out from a driveway onto the road and then the traffic is traveling at a higher rate, that could be more of a problem. So that would be indicative that maybe the speed limit should be slower than 55. The other things that indicate maybe a slower speed limit is looking at a similar stretch of road, which in this case, if we look at Broadway from about a half mile north of 85th Street to just about 77th Street, where the roundabout is, that's a 45 mile per hour speed limit currently. Similar road, there are no shoulders on Broadway, so if someone breaks down or needs to pull off the road, there's no place to pull except in the ditch. Likewise, bicycles and pedestrians are in the roadway. So all of this is indications that the speed limit probably needs to be less than what it is. And then, of course, the key factor is the addition of the Gillies Casino that's going to be opening in December. We don't know exactly what the impact of that will be, but we expect there's going to be quite a bit of traffic, and there is a driveway off of Hydraulic into the Gillies. So all of these things indicate that we probably need to lower the speed limit from where it currently is. Our recommendation is 45. Honestly, that could, there's some data that points either way as to whether it should be more than that, but it's my opinion it needs to be less than what it currently is at 55. Looking at the crash data for the last 5.5 years, we've had a total of 23 accidents in this area that we're talking about. And this year, year to date, we've had 5. The most that we've ever had in a calendar year is 6. So there's a little bit of a trend upward. We don't know what's going to happen between now and the end of the year, but a little bit of an upward trend in accidents. So I'd be glad to answer any questions.
So this doesn't change any of the other speed limits. It has some other stuff in here in red that were south of town and stuff. Those aren't changing. They're just part of that sentence. Okay.
Right.
I gotta tell you, and I chatted with the chief earlier and Sean prior to the meeting, and right now it's 55. And as you guys know, I'm kind of someone that I believe in kind of baby steps and make minor adjustments and see what it is. I see how that lands and see if it quails. I know we've had a couple complaints. Brandy had one from somebody. I had one from the same person, but we also had the other person that lives up there come in. You know, I'm just wondering, I feel like the ones that we are getting complaints on, we could lower the speed limit to 20. Those people are still gonna drive 60, 70, 80 miles an hour. Like, no matter what speed limit is, they're not worried about consequences. I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like 45 is pretty slow, like right now with not having development up there yet. I know it's coming, but I also want to remember that back when the Greyhound Park was in its heyday and the Coliseum was in its heyday, it's been 55. So let's just say that Gillies becomes what Greyhound Park was between the two properties 10, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was when they were in their heyday. We're going to go quite a bit lower than even that. And I feel like the Coliseum was probably the biggest, I'd say the biggest probably traffic congestion because it lets out a certain time and a lot of traffic's feeding out of there. And your speed limit can be a big problem. But honestly, in looking at that, I felt like even north of 85th to 101st Street, that's pretty dang high in my opinion because there's a lot of people running and walking and stuff on hydraulic. But I guess I was just wanted to weigh in a little bit. I thought 45 was a little bit low. My opinion, I felt like 50 miles an hour would be a good meet in the middle on what it is now versus what the recommendation is. And if the 85th percentile is 57 or slower, this still drops us down 7 miles an hour. So I'm open to any comments and other perspectives. Troy.
I drive that road every day, and if you're not doing 55 or faster, people are just gonna run you over. There's bikes up and down that street all the time, people walking. I do not have an issue with it being 45. What is it gonna add? Less than a minute to my time home? It's not a big deal to me. That's my opinion. I think we should have done it a long time ago, but with the construction coming, I think it's a good thing, for sure.
Linda.
I would echo what Troy said. Just last night, in my big truck, I was almost ran off the road by someone doing much faster than I was. I think if you drop it to 50, people that are doing 57 and 60 aren't going to care. They're still going to do their speed limit. So I would be in favor of the 45 also.
Jim.
I don't have a lot to weigh on. I thought the chief's study was really informative and I was listening. Yeah, there's growth there. We have the residents that live there have asked for this. There's some consistency to the 45 versus Broadway and some of the other streets out there in the area. So, yeah, I think, I hear what you're saying, John, but I think I'm okay with the 45 as well. I don't think that's a bad call at all.
Good. I would entertain a motion. Charles.
I was going to say the same thing. Basically, if it's a 45 mile an hour, people are going to drive 50. If you make it 50, they're going to drive 55. That's just kind of the way people are. They always edge over, you know. So making it 45, I think, is probably a good decision, especially with what's coming. So I'll make the motion then to approve the ordinance 1220-2025, an ordinance amending the section 14-202 of the Municipal Code of the City of Park City relating to maximum speed limits and repealing the ordinance 1194-2024.
Thank you, Charles. Jim?
I'd second that.
Okay. Motion by Charles, seconded by Jim. This will be a roll call vote. Ms. Clerk?
Terry Osborne,
Aye.
Jim Schrader,
Aye.
Charlie Davidson,
Aye.
Charles Schwenke,
Aye.
Linda Westhaver,
Aye.
Troy Hill,
Aye.
George Glover.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Next, item 5, discuss and consider an ordinance amending the City of Park City Municipal Code requiring mowing the right-of-way. Doug?
Mayor and council, this is an amendment to two sections of the city code which relate to the obligation of property owners to keep cut down tall grass and weeds. The first section is rather long, and the only change in that is the exception that appears on page 2 of that ordinance. And to distill this, the only thing that this ordinance changes is the obligation of property owners of undeveloped property. At present, there is no exception for somebody who owns undeveloped property. They're obligated to keep tall grass and weeds off of their property, the same as people that live in residential properties along Hydraulic or 61st Street. This makes an exception for undeveloped properties, but still requires those property owners to maintain the first 30 foot of right-of-way to the extent that they have frontage on rights-of-way in the city, and also 30 feet from any property that's adjacent to them which is developed. So if there's a vacant residential lot next to a improved residential lot that fronts on right-of-way, that undeveloped property owner will have the obligation to maintain 30 feet back from the street, center of the street, and in addition, to the extent that they abut an adjacent developed property, 30 feet from that adjacent property. The second section that's amended is kind of a throwaway. We don't make total sense in some of our weeds and long grass nuisance ordinances, and instead of just repealing 8401, I've just made an amendment to that anybody who owns developed property in the city of Wichita, city of Park City, is obligated to cut down weeds. The same obligation appears in the first one, 8108. They're sort of superfluous, but in the interest of consistency, it's really the first one that you should focus on, that one exception for undeveloped properties.
Jim?
Before I get into this, I'd like to know a little bit about the background, why we've been asked to change this.
Actually, it's come from several of the developers around the area. Let's take, for example, Park Center back here. This is 48 acres, and for somebody to mow that on a regular, frequent basis, once a week, once every other week, 48 acres, that's a tremendous amount of expense when, for the vast majority of it, it's undeveloped property at this time period. Originally, when we had thought about this proposal and put it forth, we were thinking 20 feet off the right-of-way. Back in 1990 was the original ordinance that says the property owners adjacent to the right-of-way is responsible all the way to maintain it to the middle of the street, which never quite made a lot of sense to me. We don't need them in the middle of the street trying to maintain, but that's what it was since 1990. So we looked at 20 feet, but Park City has a lot of ditches, and if you take it back 20 feet, then it's probably going to be in the middle of the ditch, and we want to make certain. We know we've had a lot of complaints up around 85th and Broadway as far as those areas needing to be maintained. But if you have 30 feet maintained on a regular basis, it's taking into consideration both public safety, the nuisances that weeds and tall grass up against the right-of-way takes into, as well as property ownership. And so that's the background on it. It's easier for code enforcement when somebody owns a 5-acre parcel of land and it's not developed, and we tell them, well, you got to get out there every 2 weeks and mow 5 acres. But if they mow the 30 foot off the right-of-way or any adjacent occupied property, it looks clean and maintained, which is something that we're trying to get across to the residents.
Okay, so that does help me. I was trying to picture the why. Okay, I can tell you for one, I'm one council person that gets a lot of calls when there's unmowed weeds. Yes. We're trying to grow a city. We want it to look nicer. You know, that attracts development. There's a holding cost to land. You know, you got to pay the taxes, and you got to keep liability insurance, and you got to mow the dang thing. So I don't know. I mean, I can think in my development when we had residential housing lots where we had homes built and undeveloped lots next to them, and those undeveloped lots didn't get mowed. That was a problem. We had homeowners upset because, I mean, literally it was coyotes coming up to a neighbor's yard fence because they had cover. They had 3 feet of cover in the weeds, and they'd come up and snatch somebody's dog. And it happened, and it wasn't good. Now, so as I understand, you've written in there that they can't do that. You know, there's got to be a 30-foot barrier from the street. There's got to be a 30-foot barrier mowed up against a residential house or a
Other occupied
developed
property,
property.
yes.
So you've probably eliminated that. And if there was a house or a property behind this undeveloped lot, they would have to mow a 30-foot barrier there. They potentially would have to mow a 30-foot barrier all the way around. So I think if you handled that question, I guess the worry on my mind is I've also had people say what's going on 53rd Street because they did all this development and dirt work and now it's grown up in weeds. I've had the comment already, so strikes me we shouldn't be allowing or promoting it to grow up in weeds.
Yes, sir.
That's
A
just
lot
my
of-
thoughts.
A lot of, well, quite honestly, around here, a lot of the larger undeveloped tracts, people will contract with a farmer and they'll go ahead and use it as an ag use before then.
Sure.
Well, we still want them to maintain the right-of-way, so this gives us 30 feet. And then if they have an ag use, for those that you talk about in a residential area, if you have a vacant lot and you have adjoining houses on either side, well, you got to come 30 feet from this direction, 30 feet from this direction, 30 feet off. By the time you're going to get done, they're more than likely just going to go ahead and mow the whole entire property. So this is primarily on larger tracts of undeveloped land. We talk about the Briarbrook neighborhood that is under development up there. They have been developing, they may still own another 20, 30, 40 acres of land where houses have not occurred at this point. That's the request that was made is, I've got to maintain all of that. As it stands right now, yes, you do have to. And
The
so
way
that's,
this is written, though, there would be no distinguishment between those lots and the single lot, right? They would, if we allow a use for, if they have a 30-acre lot or a 48-acre lot and they only mow the 30 feet, well, the ordinance isn't written to exclude
that's correct.
the residential lot that we could have a problem with later.
Well, HOA would cover some of those.
I-
Is that what you mean?
The HOAs sometimes don't have a lot of teeth in this sort of thing.
Correct. On the undeveloped residential, such as Briarbrook, until houses are developed, they would be maintaining 30 feet of right-of-way off the road. As houses start to fill in, the land area that they're responsible for is going to shrink or is going to increase because they're going to have to go 30 feet to an occupied property next door.
I still see what you're saying, but I'm trying to think of an example.
So-
I'm
so-
thinking of Bear Hill 10 years ago when we had 20 lots.
Scattered throughout.
And you
that
had
were
houses
undeveloped?
scattered in the middle of them.
Yes.
This, the way this is written, would have been a problem because we had to have enforcement actions done to get those lots mowed. Because we had
Would fix it.
critters.
Would some of those not have to be mowed?
The 30-foot,
You're saying 30-foot perimeter basically that adjoins another property that's occupied?
that's
What
correct. A 30-foot perimeter
street? All
around,
of it wouldn't need to be mowed,
that's correct.
even in a neighborhood.
That is correct.
I think there's some
The-
cost
the-
to development.
And again, this was a proposal for, if council wants to not approve, then that's their prerogative. A lot of this, I know that from a code enforcement standpoint, we get the fact that everyone is maybe mowing only 10 feet off the road, and that's not the way it's supposed to be as it currently is. So we're looking at getting it back 30 feet off the right-of-way. The other thing is we get complaints that, hey, this undeveloped lot is next to me and the field varmints are all coming from that and getting into my yard. So we're making certain it's 30 foot off of that to make certain that rats, mice, snakes, whatever, are not infringing on an occupied territory or property next door, but
So could we add to where a lot that has, like water, sewer services to it, that we've already ran infrastructure into, or restricted on the size? If it's a lot that's, say, smaller than 1 acre, it would have to be done?
well, I'd ask Doug if having infrastructure, water and sewer is that considered, we could consider that as developed property?
I'd almost consider a split between residential and commercial too. I just don't think you should do this in residential.
Any other concerns with this while we're?
Go ahead.
Terry?
Yeah, I just feel like that, of course, you know, this section of the ordinance isn't in place today, and then today it's, you know, it needs to be kept up. Well, I can point you to several properties that aren't, okay? And you know, and the grass and weeds are, you know, an undeveloped land and is rather high. So for those areas, I don't think the 30 feet piece of it will get observed as well. I think it just asks, just to me, it brings in, you know, let's just make everything look like a pasture land. You know, instead of, you know, now maybe, you know, maybe I look at it wrongly, but if I were a developer and I'm trying to showcase or sell my properties, I want it to look that way. You know, I want it to look like what, you know, if I go out and I look at a lot or I look at a piece of property and you know, I can't see what it even looks like. I don't know. I just feel like that there needs to be, you know, kind of what Jim said, there needs to be some ownership involved there as well. You know, and even today, it's not really saying, you know, mow once a week. You know, many of those, even if they do it once a month, I mean, my gosh, that's a that's a huge improvement over what's being done today.
Charlie? I'm sorry, Linda.
Oh. That was a weird confusion. We have land, I like this proposal. We have land, neighbors that are not developed in as they're building, and they've let their land sit and they're not doing anything for it. As a builder, there is no return on investment for mowing the land, for taking care of it. It's an expense, they get nothing back from it. So the idea that they need to just mow 30 feet back, you know, 5 lots in a row, they just mow 30 feet back, and when they hit next to a house that's built 30 feet off there, they still have an area they don't have to maintain. It cuts down the cost that they have. But on the flip side, inside the residential areas, it gets those lots that are not built on yet. It gets those maintained. And it's not always the same builder, obviously, that owns all the lots. And that's my concern, where the one that we have in our neighborhood, it's just sitting there not mowed. And this ordinance would obviously incentivize them to mow it, which they're not doing. So I like it. I don't see the issue with it, because I don't, and I'm open to ideas of it, but I just can't find an issue with it.
Okay. Troy?
Yeah, I kind of was going to echo what Linda said. I can see where some of these other big parcels where they're not being mowed, and really we're just addressing the right-of-way, the roads, where it's more of a safety concern, where the weeds are so high you can't see through the intersection. I don't have an issue with this. I think it's a good idea. I think it gives us, the city, a little more teeth too. So if it's not getting done, we have the ability to do something about it instead of just passing the buck. That's all I got.
Charles?
Yeah, this is a tough one, because I hate to pass an ordinance that allows more weeds to grow, and that's basically what we'd be doing. But on the other hand, they're not cutting them now, so maybe we're not tough enough coming on our codes enforcement on those things, you know. But inside of a residential district that's under construction, I've witnessed those things before, where the weeds are growing 4, 5, 6, 7 foot tall right next to a house that's occupied, and they at least need to mow 30 foot, but you're still 30 foot away, and then the weeds are going to be 4, 5, 6 tall. I just don't get it, you know. So I'm going to hinge on the fact, I'd rather pass something that caused people to mow more than less.
Terry?
Yeah, Troy, I guess I disagree with your comment that this puts some teeth into what we have today. It doesn't. It's pulling teeth, because what's there today says they mow it, period. Which they don't do, okay? This says they can only, they only have to mow 30 feet. Well, they're probably not gonna do that either. So I think it pulls teeth or puts less teeth into it. If we're gonna have the ordinance that they need to mow, let's leave the ordinance as is, and let's put some additional teeth in it. Charles, I agree. We're just inviting more weeds to grow.
I feel like we're probably best, and I have 2 citizens that are signed up to come talk on this, but I feel like we need to send this back to staff, and I think we need to exempt, this would not apply to city lots that have streets, and some of this I'm saying because I want you to understand what I mean. I may not say it how you're wanting to write it into the ordinance. But a city lot that has streets and utilities ran to it, we do not want them to be allowed to only mow 30 feet. They would still be required to mow the entire lot.
Yeah.
This would be for, the other way you could do it is anything that's less than an acre would still have, the current law that's in place would still apply.
I like that.
I feel like when they're developing 1 acre plus lots, they're much larger and tend to have houses that are much further away from the property line anyway. And that would give more room for the 30 feet would give them some distance. So let's let, we have Jennifer Cross has signed up to come speak. Do you want to come up? Good evening, thank you for being here.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Jennifer Cross, and I'm here not only as a concerned resident, but also as the Prairie Hills Edition Homeowners Association President. To tell you what our HOA encompasses, it has the potential for 99 residential properties. Currently, 64 of those are occupied by homeowners, while 10 are in various stages of construction by Superior Homes. The remaining 25 are undeveloped lots. 1 lot's owned by Luna and is consistently well-maintained. 3 lots are owned by Chisholm Construction, which also maintains them well. And the remaining 21 lots are owned by SBA Construction and are in a state of neglect with overgrown weeds exceeding, last I looked, 5 foot in height, way taller than me, and I haven't looked in over a month, so I'm sure it's taller now. I have received, SBA Construction also holds, along with these 21 lots, another 45 additional lots within our broader neighborhood outside our HOA boundaries, and many of those additional lots are adjacent to or will be visible from Park Center. I've received numerous complaints from existing homeowners, new residents, prospective residents, and our active builder, Superior Homes, regarding the state of neglect on the undeveloped lots. They are next to each other in, SBA owns a chunk. So limiting it to 1 acre won't even help him, or won't help us in this.
Sorry to interrupt you. Is it cut into lots, though? I know the total
It is.
property may be multiple acres, but.
They are cut into lots, except for one section is a bigger chunk, which I think was supposed to be older folks' homes, maybe?
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go
It's
ahead.
okay. In response, I have advised all concerned parties to contact code enforcement as we're dealing with a builder who's not actively invested in or contributed to the development of our neighborhood for at least the past decade, if not longer. While I understand and respect the intent behind the change to strike a balance between public safety and property owner burden, I believe it risks creating far more problems than it solves, especially for those of us who live, build, and invest in this community every day. Let me be clear, this change may be helpful for absentee landowners and speculators sitting on undeveloped parcels, but is detrimental to the development or the developers who are actually building homes and investing in our neighborhoods. These are individuals and businesses investing their time, money, and effort into making our neighborhoods and city a better place. And they're often doing so right next to large, unmanaged, undeveloped lots. Reducing the maintenance standards for those lots creates an imbalance. It rewards property owners who do nothing while punishing those who are doing everything right. Sorry, I went to the next page. Take the case, or we already have seen the consequences of this kind of imbalance, taking the case of Robert Cowdery, a property owner who acquired the Prairie Hills Additions HOA's common areas C and D at a tax auction, parcels that never should have been sold in the first place. These areas, land under the power lines and around the pond, can't be developed. Yet under this proposed change, Mr. Cowdery would no longer be required to mow or maintain these spaces ever. And we already have serious issues with him neglecting these properties as it is. This code revision would essentially reward his negligence and strip the city and our HOA of any ability to enforce maintenance standards on parcels that impact homes in our neighborhood. This isn't just about weeds, it's about the real consequences of allowing large areas of overgrowth to sit unmanaged. First, it's a public health and safety issue. Overgrown vegetation creates hiding places and habitats for pests, rodents, snakes, ticks, and mosquitoes. They don't stay within an arbitrary boundary of 30 feet. We're risking infestations that impact homes, families, and neighborhoods, not just empty fields. Second, it's a fire hazard. With climate shifts causing longer, drier spells, except for this year, and hotter summers, unmowed fields of grass and brush become fuel. A 30-foot buffer is not enough to mitigate fire risks in many cases, especially in areas near homes or utility infrastructure. In fact, the U.S. Forestry Service states that while 30 feet is the minimum recommended defensible space, effective fire mitigation often requires maintaining a buffer of up to 100 feet from structures to truly reduce fire danger. By limiting maintenance to just 30 feet, we're falling well short of best practices and putting nearby residents and properties at unnecessary risk, particularly when the undeveloped lots are adjacent to homes. Third, this change damages property values and community appearance. What message does it send to a new home buyer when their backyard neighbor is a field of shoulder-high weeds, if not taller at this point? If only the first 30 feet of the parcel is maintained, we'll see patchy, inconsistent landscapes where newly built homes sit beside wild, neglected land, and that's not a community standard we should be lowering ourselves to. And finally, this change sets a dangerous precedent. It tells absentee owners and speculators that doing the bare minimum or less is acceptable, and that's not the kind of community we're trying to build. It undermines responsible development, frustrates residents, and invites more long-term maintenance problems the city will eventually have to deal with. If the current code is difficult to enforce or burdensome in some cases, then talk about targeted solutions. Look at flexible enforcement for truly oversized lots or maintenance assistance programs, but watering down the standards across the board is not the answer. We are at a critical moment for growth in our city, and we need to support those who are investing in our neighborhoods and not those who are simply sitting on them. I urge you to vote against the proposed change and to preserve the existing code that protects public safety, health, and the character of our community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Beth?
Hi. I don't have anything super formal prepared. She said everything really that I needed to say as well, but I just want to add a few things. I'm the secretary of the Prairie Hills Homeowners Association. I've been part of the board for as long as I've lived in Park City, which at this point is 11 years. I've heard a couple things that I really appreciate. I've heard some dissenting opinions, which caused me to consider, but the two things that I really want to highlight is as somebody who's lived here for 11 years, as somebody who's been to a number of these meetings, our HOA has a long history with most of the council. Most of you guys are new since we've had some of our issues, but I've been to a lot of these meetings and I've stood up here and I've spoken, and it feels very much often that the city, the council, again, most of you guys are new, but that you vote for what's best for the city, the business part, and often a lot of times ignore what we feel as homeowners and residents is important to us. And so I really appreciated the suggestion that we separate commercial versus residential, because this ordinance is really, really, really gonna affect us as residents, and there's no protection for that. The second thing I wanna really quickly touch on is I heard someone say that HOAs should cover a lot of that, and we don't have a lot of power. That we really don't. We have some, but typically what we find is when we try to enforce things, we don't get nearly as far, even when we try, as the city does when they come in and enforce the code. So I think that's kind of a misguided assumption. And then my third and last thing, which I've just kind of sort of forgot, hold on. I heard I think Mr. Hill say that it gives the city more teeth. I'm a teacher, and I know as a teacher of young elementary kids, if I have an expectation, I expect it to be enforced. And if I take if I give them a little bit, they take a mile. And the expectation that you already have in place is not being met. And I think it's very dangerous for you to say, if we give them a little grace, maybe they'll do it. They won't. Humans don't. So if they're not already doing it, they're not going to do it. So I just would really, really, really request that you guys consider us as homeowners and maybe send it back and revise it a little bit, because as it stands right now, it's really punishing to us, and that is really frustrating. So thank you.
Okay, I think we've had considerable discussion from, I believe, everybody on the council's weighed in. If anybody hasn't, you're welcome to. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to send this back to staff for the revisions we discussed. Troy.
I'd like to make a motion to send this back to staff for other considerations.
Terry.
Second.
Okay, motion by Troy, seconded by Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye, nay.
Motion passes 6-1. Okay, next item. Discuss and consider approval of a change orders from Donlinger Construction.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. During work on the Phase 2 stormwater drainage project, several water lines have been identified as needing lowering in order to place the new box culverts within the drainage channel. These locations include East Parkview near Judson, Hartford near Ashford, and, Mobile Drive. Staff is proposing to replace and lower the water lines at Parkview and Hartford with similar 4-inch water lines at a cost of $35,200. On Mobile, staff is proposing to upsize and replace the 4-inch water line with an 8-inch water line, starting at Denver along Mobile and ending on Connolly Court. This upsize and replacement is consistent with the annual program to replace aging and outdated water lines and is proposed to be paid from such. It also makes a new loop connection with an existing 8-inch line along Connolly Court that currently dead ends, providing added coverage and an overall improvement to the water system via loop creation. The total cost for this project is $145,590. This is a budgeted item, and staff does recommend approval of a change order for an amount not to exceed $180,790 to be paid from the utility fund. And I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Jim, or Terry?
I don't have any questions. If anybody else has any questions, but if not, I'd move to approve the change order with Donlinger Construction in the amount not to exceed $180,790 to be paid from the utility fund.
Thank you. Jim?
I'll second that for discussion if needed.
Any further questions or discussion on this? Okay, motion by Terry, seconded by Jim. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Next is item 7, discuss and consider amending water conservation program.
As a water customer of the City of Wichita, we are required to comply with any water restrictions that they implement. Previously, the restrictions allowed for 1 day a week watering. With improved water levels at Cheney Lake, Wichita recently addressed and approved different permanent outdoor water restrictions to be effective September 15th of this year. Property addresses ending in odd numbers can water on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, while even numbered addresses can water on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. All lawn watering is prohibited on Mondays and between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on those allowed watering days. Well users are exempt from these restrictions, and there are variants that allow for unlimited watering for 21 days on newly sodded lawns, as well as 30 days for seeding lawns. Staff is recommending to adopt the same restrictions as the City of Wichita in order to be consistent with the overall message being sent to water users. And upon approval from council, an ordinance will be presented at the next meeting. I stand for any questions you may have.
Jim?
Just one question. Love that they gave us an avenue for planting or reseeding our lawns that have been stressed for the last year. Do you have to apply for something there? Is there a formal process? Could you expand on what people need to do to
Yeah, we
replant
are
their
still
yards?
working through the logistics of how we take in, track, monitor those exceptions. Obviously, with a sod lawn, you kind of, if you see it, you know it's been put in. You may not know what date it got put in.
Right.
There may be a lot of honor system to it, but we are still working through the logistics of how that variance process would work for those two situations.
So recommendation for phone calls we get is to have them call the city and just check in before they plant? Okay. I see Sean
I
nodding.
figured he was nodding over there behind me.
If I may, because the city of Wichita just last week had all of its wholesale customers get together out at the new water plant where they wanted to go through this. The one thing that they were pretty insistent upon is it's up to us to tell people how to implement this plan, and we could do it however. The city of Derby sat there and said, we're going to go 3 days a week, and they don't do odds and evens. Just 3 days a week, that's the only thing. We talked about it with Gina and for our system currently, especially with the water tower right now being repainted, which means it's out of commission. It is better for us to schedule it 6 days a week. The city of Bel Air did 6 days a week, 3 for odds, 3 for even addressed homes. The only thing that the city of Wichita indicated is when it comes to a variance, we need to have a process in place for variances. However, we would like to manage the variance. This is their variance, 21 days on a newly sodded or 30 days on reseed. It would be up to us, and again, for consistency, that's the recommendation, is to follow suit to where it doesn't add to confusion. But yes, all they wanted us to do is make certain that there is a variance process that would be put into place. They're not telling us what those variances have to be.
Excellent.
Seems like it would be easier to just do 30 days with both.
And that's something that we had done while we were even doing 1 day restriction, because we do have new developments growing around here, and understanding that nobody's going to establish a lawn with new fescue sod if they're only allowed to water 1 day a week. It is difficult to manage at best because you have to get code enforcement as well as the planning department to make certain, okay, when are you establishing the lawn, so that we know 30 days from now. That's when you're back on the hook with everyone else.
George Glover?
Yeah, Jen, so the water levels at Cheney are back to normal, correct? So before we established this, what were the water restrictions going on before Cheney, when Cheney was low? Is there any difference at what they're wanting now as opposed to when it was really low?
Yeah, when it was really low, we were restricted to 1 day a week.
Okay, so that's
So
been
this
changed.
is significantly more than that restriction. The idea that was presented was something that had been adopted down in Oklahoma to handle water conservation. It seemed to work really well, had that balance between being able to water, keep stuff alive, but also, creating some conservation at the same time.
So if people's water meters act up and they say, well, I only water 1 day a week, why is my water bill so high? We can check our water meters for that, huh?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're welcome.
Terry?
Yeah, I actually like this change. I think 3 days a week is sufficient anyway. You speak to most agronomists, and watering any more than that, you tend to have shallower roots, so you have a weaker lawn with shallower roots. So by doing 3 days a week, which is most of them's recommendation, you tend to have a stronger root system. So I like the timing of 3 days a week.
Jim?
I'll go ahead and move to approve an amendment to the Water Conservation Program and allow an ordinance to be drafted to reflect the changes, which will be presented at the next meeting.
Troy?
I'll second.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Troy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Next, item 8, discuss and consider purchase of a hydrovac.
Staff is seeking authorization to replace our current Vermeer hydrovac. What once met our needs is now undersized for the type of repairs that our crews are performing, adding hours to water main replacements. The equipment has also been removed from service multiple times for repetitive and costly repairs, each time being placed back in service for only days before breaking down again. We did purchase the equipment in 2021 at a cost of $103,000. We do believe we can recoup approximately $45,000 by placing it for sale on Purple Wave, and that number could go higher. That's just the minimum that we've been told we should expect. Ditch Witch has provided a quote for an HX50A water vacuum machine, which has a larger gallon water storage tank and a larger waste tank capacity, as well as other features that allow the crews to boom operate the hose and also would not require them to climb out of the repair hole to make adjustments to the machine. Currently, they have to climb out, make their adjustment on the machine, go back in. This actually has a remote that dangles down into the hole that they can make their changes and adjustments from. Ditch Witch does have a service center here in Park City. The total cost utilizing their Sourcewell pricing is $134,109.57. I would like to mention that although we're utilizing Sourcewell pricing, which is competitively bid, we did obtain 2 other quotes, which came in at $154,000 and $144,000. So this is still our low quote. This is an unbudgeted item to be paid from the utility fund by means of a transfer from the utility CIP/CEF/improvement fund. If you do make a motion to approve, I would ask that you insert the word utility in front of the CIP/CEF improvement fund statement. Staff does recommend approval, and I stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Jim?
Just to be honest, you answered all my questions, Sheena, in your presentation, because I had a couple, so. Makes sense to me. I'll move to approve the purchase of the hydrovac in the amount not to exceed $134,109.57 to be paid from the utility fund by means of a transfer from the utility CIP/CEF improvement fund.
George Glover?
I'll second the motion.
Great. Any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Next, item 9, discuss and consider approval of a purchase for a 2024 Silverado 5500.
Staff recently disposed of the large dump truck after it was discovered the transmission needed replaced, among other issues it was having. The dump truck had not been operational for over 2 years, and we did receive $25,850 from the sale of the dump truck on Purple Wave. We are continuing to work to finish the sale of the plow and other dump truck-related accessories that we're unable to use on current equipment. A replacement dump truck had been budgeted in the amount of $80,000. However, staff is proposing to purchase a new 2024 Chevy Silverado 5500 in its place. While smaller, the Chevy Silverado 5500 will be able to be fitted with a dump bed to carry loads sufficient for the work that we do, and can be fitted with a plow and spreader for snow operations. This will also be a piece of equipment that all of our staff can operate, as the original dump truck required a CDL to drive. Don Hatton Chevrolet has quoted us the state contract pricing of $62,400. We did also obtain state contract pricing on a Ford F-550, and that came in higher. That came in $4,000 higher than this quote. So staff is recommending approval of the purchase of a 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 5500 from Don Hatton, utilizing state contract pricing in an amount not to exceed $62,400 to be paid from the Vehicle Replacement Fund. And I stand for any questions you may have.
Charlie?
Gina, just a quick question. Does that $62,400 include fitting it with what you need?
It
Or is
does
that-
not. So that's the chassis only.
Okay.
Regardless of what we want on it, that's not something that a dealership would do. They could coordinate, but they'd still tack on to whatever subcontract pricing they're doing. So we'd prefer to work directly with Midwest Truck or Kenworth, one of those local area places that can actually put the bed and whatnot on. So that may be a request that comes back to council in the near future.
You know what cost that might be, or?
I don't.
Probably not yet.
I
Okay.
don't. I've not equipped a 5500 before, so I could only speculate.
Thanks.
Jim?
I love seeing some of the local businesses winning bids and giving us the competitive pricing. So I would move to approve the purchase of the 2024 Chevrolet Silverado 5500 from Don Hatton Chevrolet utilizing state contract pricing in the amount of $62,400 to be paid out of the vehicle replacement fund.
Troy?
Second.
Any further questions or discussion? Okay, motion by Jim, seconded by Troy. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Item 10, discuss and consider approval of a purchase of a snow plow and cutting edge for same truck.
Yep, related to the previous item. Current snow removal operations rely on 3 plows which cut and push snow off of the roadway. With the purchase of the new Chevy Silverado 5500, staff is requesting to purchase a plow and carbide cutting edge from American Equipment Company to equip the new vehicle for snow operations. This is an unbudgeted item to be paid from the Streets and Highway Fund, and staff does recommend approval for the purchase of a plow and cutting edge in an amount not to exceed $16,426. I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jim.
Gina, am I remembering right? Didn't we have a snowplow go down last year?
We did, and
So
we bought a plow last year as well.
we did
to
already replace that one? Okay.
Mhm.
I was trying to remember.
Yeah, that was a 9-foot plow that we bought for one of the 1-tons. This would be a 10-foot plow.
Okay, excellent. I'll be quiet and see if there's any other questions.
Troy?
I don't have any questions. I'll move to approve the purchase of a plow and cutting edge in the amount not to exceed $16,426 to be paid from the special streets funds and highway funds.
Jim?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Item 11, discuss and consider approving an Innovation Technology Award Agreement with Kansas Department of Transportation. Gina?
Okay, staff had applied for an innovative technology grant with the Kansas Department of Transportation for a transportation network evaluation using artificial intelligence. Park City was one of 20 projects selected through the state by the governor, awarding more than $4.5 million in grant funding. Park City's award will focus on updating the city's road and street master inventory utilizing AI. The total value of the project is $65,500, with $49,125 being paid by KDOT and the remaining amount of $16,375 being paid by the city. This is an unbudgeted item, but staff is recommending approval to be paid for using the Special Streets and Highway Fund. I stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Yep.
You made me curious. What kind of AI, I mean, what
So
does
they
this do?
drive the streets. Essentially, they have a camera, they drive the streets. It assesses the pavement condition. It's also going to inventory our pavement markings. We could ask them to expand that to inventory our sidewalks. We can upload all of that into GIS, but it's essentially AI to look at the road and tell us what that scoring is. Where in previous times, we had an employee go out, we've tried to make it the same consistent employee because judgment can always factor into that score. And then they're having to literally drive every road and try to assign it deficiencies and scores and rank those. This does all of that for us.
This sounds pretty nice, actually, and to have the state offer a grant to choose us to pay for so much of it, that's not a real big investment from our part here. Seems like a good thing, so I'll move to approve the mayor To approve and authorize the mayor to execute an innovative technology award agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation in the amount of $16,375 to be paid out of the Street and Highway Fund.
Terry?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion on that? Good. Motion by Jim, seconded by Terry to approve. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you.
And item 12, discuss and consider approving an agreement with GFT Infrastructure Incorporated for a preliminary traffic analysis.
Yes, sir. With improvements to both Crosswinds Casino and Gillies Park City, traffic is expected to increase at the intersection of 77th and Wyandotte Way. Attached is a proposed consulting service agreement with GFT Infrastructure, formerly known as Transsystem, to conduct a traffic signal warrant analysis for an intersection. If warranted, staff is working with the adjacent property owners and will submit a petition for installation of a traffic signal for council's consideration at a later date. The total cost of the agreement is $5,000 to be paid out of the Streets and Highway Fund. It is on budget and staff recommends approval.
Thank you. Charles?
Would the information that we gain from this be valuable in getting a grant to help pay for the stoplights? Or is that something they wouldn't do?
I am unaware of any grant program that supports or supports cities putting in traffic signals. For a traffic signal to be, there's a total of 9 different warrants out there that one of those warrants has to be satisfied in order for the city to put in a traffic signal, and that's what this would do. It would take a look at crash data at that particular intersection. It'll take a look at the total number of left-hand turns during an AM and PM peak hours, but seeing how both of the primary businesses are located right there that'll be using the intersection are casinos that may not have an AM or PM peak hours, then they can also look at total number of left-hand turns in a 4-hour block or an 8-hour block. We just need one of those warrants to be satisfied in order to legally put in a traffic light at that intersection. We're trying to get this done currently at this time just because we know the latest estimate is just to order mast arms. If it were perfectly designed, engineered and designed today, it takes somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 to 12 months just to get mast arms in for a traffic light. So we already know that it's going to happen sooner rather than later. So.
Okay, so basically this gives us the ability to do it when we want to do it.
Yes, sir. And like I said, we're working with the adjacent property owners on 3 of the major corners, the 4th corner being Sedgwick County Fire Department. There would be an expectation or hope that the 3 adjacent property owners will pay a various portion of that traffic light installation, but there will be a portion of it that would be the city at large because of Sedgwick County in the city.
I can guarantee you we will need a stoplight there, so that this would be good.
And that's the thing, most people, it seems very obvious. It probably should have been done a couple years ago before we've gotten this far downrange. The traffic light's going to need to be needed sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Terry?
So Sean, if the study shows, yes, traffic light is needed, would, since there's the length of time to get the traffic arms, would temporary lights be put up similar to what we have here on 53rd and?
That is a possibility to take a look at and see how dire the situation is and to go ahead and install temporary lights until the mast arms could be obtained, because it'll take some time to engineer. So,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Linda?
With the way the traffic is when you head eastbound over the bridge right there, will they also tell us if there's going to be any impact to like traffic? Like, it just seems like a very short stopping distance there for the traffic to come to that light, especially coming off the highway, coming over the bridge.
Yes, ma'am. When we reached out to 3 different engineering firms to get an estimate on how much to satisfy a traffic warrant, this was the least expensive option. but all three of them were told that I would prefer that they put in a proposal on a three-phase process. We had already known that the last time that Gillies came in, they had talked about, the last time that they talked with council, they had talked about not only when they open up in December, that would be the time that they plan on starting construction of a hotel along Hydraulic, and that their ultimate goals would be not only one or possibly two hotels along that, but a retail spine. So we anticipate that there's going to be additional traffic that they need to take into consideration on Hydraulic, which is going to impact the intersection of 77th and Hydraulic. It's also going to be an impact to 85th and Hydraulic. So phase one, let's get the traffic light signal warranted, get that check in the block. Phase two would be, we're going to need to study the traffic for Hydraulic between 85th and 77th. And then phase three is, because it's dealing with KDOT, recommendations to coming off the highway. What other traffic devices would need to be installed at that time period? That's, to me, a longer range down because it involves KDOT, and KDOT doesn't ever do anything very easy, as far as that is concerned. But that would be the expectation. Right now, the proposal is for the traffic light, but then when development along Hydraulic happens with Gillies, the expectation is they'll be taking care of that part of the traffic study because they're going to be the ones that are putting the additional demand on the system.
Jim?
I'll move to approve an agreement with GFT Infrastructure, Inc. for a traffic study in the amount of $5,000 to be paid out of the Street and Highway Fund.
Charles?
I will second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion by Jim, second by Charles. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 7-0. Next, have governing body reports. Start with Charlie.
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you. George.
Anything tonight?
Good. Linda.
I was trying, I have nothing.
Charles.
Oh, I hate to break the trend. I have nothing.
Terry.
Let's make it unanimous. Nothing for me.
Same here. And I got something, that's all. No, I wanted to just comment that I was the only one that voted against sending the mowing revisions back to staff for revisions. I just voted against it because I don't see any point in revising it. It just nothing needs to be relaxed on mowing. But anyway, it just seems complicated. So I like to clarify myself, but I respect that everybody's opinions, and we'll go with the Democratic vote on that one. But that's all good. So anyway, no, enjoy the little bit cooler weather.
Yes, very much. Well, thank you. I have nothing as well. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Terry.
Move we adjourn.
Jim.
Second.
Motion by Terry, seconded by Terry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Passes 7-0.
Bye, Terry. Bye, Terry.
Terry, second
Yeah,
by
but
Terry.
Terry.
Yeah.